From the Green Room Studios at Bates Nursery in Nashville, Tennessee, it's Gardening Inside Out, a podcast with highlights from our Saturday morning live show, answering all your gardening questions, giving you plant advice for any space in your life. Let's start the show.
Hey everyone, Caroline here.
And hi, Austin Lowen here.
Hey, Tyler again.
It's all of us, the three of us together again, but you know who we are going to be missing in this week's broadcast? Yep.
Me.
Austin.
Me.
So this week we were joined by Adam Chapman once again, so you'll get to hear that voice come across your speakers.
I know, and I want to know, I haven't heard it yet. I want to know what y'all talked about. Give me a little, what was it?
We talked a lot about hydrangeas, so you were missed.
What?
Yeah.
Y'all decided to go with hydrangea without me?
Oh, yeah.
We
Really?
didn't decide to. Those were the questions we got in from our followers. They needed to know about hydrangea. They didn't know you weren't going to be here.
Yeah, but I'm the hydrangea guy.
Yeah, that's true.
You're right, though. The show must go on. They had to. Okay, I get it. I hope y'all gave good answers.
We gave amazing answers. You'll have to listen to find out. But while we're on the hydrangea topic, some of our listeners might not know what your favorite one is.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Incredible.
The incredible hydrangea. Truly incredible.
Why is that?
It's just a performer. Gets big. Pure white blooms that are round. I love round blooms.
You also love white flowers.
I do.
Very basic over here.
The reason I like I use boxwood, and I like white with boxwood. I think that's attractive. But you know me, and my favorite flower color is actually pink.
Pink. It is pink.
So-
Pink, white, boxwoods, and switchgrass. If you ever want to create a bed, that would be approved by Austin. Those are the four things that you really need to go for. But Tyler, what else did we talk about? Let's fill Austin in.
Well, I showed off some Gulf fritillary chrysalis and talked about how those butterflies are really common around this time of year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about butterflies. As always, we talked about pollinators.
Okay.
It was
Well-
a lively broadcast, but we did miss you.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Oh, Caroline, you talked about bringing plants indoors.
Yes, I did. I talked about bringing plants indoors. I did a quick wrap up on what you need to do because we are approaching that time, y'all. It's time to start bringing those houseplants in and inspecting them. I have not begun that process, which is going to be a very long one, but I will start soon. So let's go ahead and give you a listen. You'll get to learn all about bringing those houseplants in, learn what Austin missed out on Hydrangea Talk.
I will learn what I missed out on.
You will learn what you missed out on. So let's go ahead and give it a listen from our Saturday, September 23rd broadcast. Well, hey, before we hop on questions, I do want to talk about things that are happening at the nursery right now.
Okay.
So as you can see, we're surrounded by beauty today. We did talk about getting the Isley truck in the last few weeks. It finally came in, and David did talk about it in the newsletter. So all the plants in here today are from Isley, but we also got the Talavera truck. So it usually comes once a year. We don't know when it's actually going to get here. A trailer straight from Mexico just pulls into the lot at any time. We're always surprised when they get here, and we have so much at the nursery. And I actually asked the guy how long it takes to pack the trailer, because it's this huge trailer, and he said 3 to 4 days of them just packing all this pottery, figurines, these gorgeous things that you can buy here into a trailer that just comes across the border. Yeah. So come down, get you some Talavera and some Isley. There's some gorgeous stuff. We got bird baths, we got large pots, we got some big giant jack-o'-lanterns in this year that we haven't gotten before. We usually get the smaller ones and the medium, but we got some huge ones, and there's not a lot of the stuff. So come on down and take a look. But let's go ahead and get into some questions. We have a question about planting on a slope. Looking for plants that would be happy on a slope in partial sun.
On a slope, are they trying to cover the slope, or are they just trying
Maybe they just want to plant. I don't know. They didn't give us any other information.
You said partial.
What would you put on a slope?
Partial sun.
Partial sun.
Well, if you're just trying to create a hedge or a screen in partial sun, I mean, depends on how big you want it to get. You know, laurels would be effective. Skip laurel if you want it to get a little taller. Maybe even the Distillium linebacker might be a good one.
Is it an outside linebacker or inside linebacker?
I think it depends on.
It goes inside and outside.
Yeah, it does.
Whether you're in a 5.3 or a
3.5.
Yes.
It's a press and a full out blitz.
It's a sports champ for sure.
So those are good evergreens for that. If you want to go with deciduous flowering, you could do like a native viburnum, like arrowwood viburnum. That would look good.
That would look good, yeah.
Now, one little unsolicited bit of information to whomever is asking the question is when you're planting on a slope, and it does not matter what you're planting, it makes watering obviously more difficult. And in light of that, if you are planting with a saucer, and you should be when you're planting, recommend saucering plants at least for the first several months. And what that does is you take this excess soil and you put it on the downhill side and make like a little ring, a little saucer effect, so that it has a place for water to pool up and to soak straight down. Because when you're watering on the hillside, it tends to just run off.
Gravity is great.
It is. So having that earthen dam, that little saucer on the bottom half, if depending on the amount of slope it is very beneficial. And that's a trick that can give you a lot of added benefit with respect to keeping the plants watered well enough. So
I've never
particularly when
heard of
it's
that.
dry like
Yeah,
like
and
this.
that's the key when you're planting on a slope is keeping them wet. It doesn't really matter what you plant there. Otherwise, it's just keeping them watered.
What I'm about to plant on a slope that I'm very excited about. We got a lot of trees in the last week or two here at the nursery. We got some giant weeping willow trees. And I have a huge slope that goes down into a spring that's got a little bit of stream going down. So I'm going to plant a willow on that slope and see how it does.
Well,
So I'm going to use the saucer method for
if
watering.
if you get that willow close enough to the stream where it can actually stay wet, the good thing about either a bald cypress or a weeping willow is that it is impossible to overwater them.
Correct.
They literally can be sitting in water. So if you can take advantage of the wet soil conditions, you're not going to have to do much to it after you plant it.
I've got a sandbar willow down there right now that just was a volunteer that came up that got washed in from somewhere, and it's doing great. Those things grow so quickly, but I'm excited about having a weeper. Okay, guys, are you ready to talk about spirea? So my blue kazoo spirea has fried up despite watering. Are they actually a shade shrub?
I have heard. I've never planted that one, but I have a friend of the show, Shane Burton.
Friend.
Of the show.
He planted some at his house, and he said, it actually does better in some shade. So,
I didn't know.
but it would live in the sun. It may they're so sensitive to spireas in general. Their wilt point is so once they wilt beyond a certain point, the leaves just curl up and dry up, but they're not dead.
No,
they're going to leaf back out as long as you keep watering them.
How often do we get people who bring them back as dead, and then
all the time.
we stick them back in a container and irrigate them for a couple of weeks, and they flush right back out? So.
What to plant with peonies? They are looking rough this time of year. Yeah, so right now mine are looking sad, but I leave those leaves up so they can get all the sun that they can get before winter comes in, so then they have more blooms next year. I mix echinacea with mine, although my echinacea looks sad right now. I'd say lantana would pair well with it as well.
I would think so. Maybe rudbeckia, blackwood season.
I need
Those
something
kind of bloom
fairly
out by now,
tall, though,
too.
right?
You could plant something short in front or tall behind.
Maybe some catmint, maybe.
Catmint would be great. I know you love catmint. Feel like that comes up every time you're on the show.
It's good. It's just it blooms all the time.
It's either that or nepeta, either one. Which of course is the same thing.
Same thing.
For those who don't know, that was a hort
Zinnias
joke.
would also be a really good option.
Yes.
Because
some
as the
zinnias.
summer progresses, mine are still in full bloom right now, but they're starting to eat everything in those beds that they were planted next to. So that would kind of cover up some of those sad looking leaves, give you a lot of blooms. And like I said, rudbeckia and echinacea right now are starting to look sad as well, but zinnias and lantana are still just going wild.
I'm getting new blooms on mine.
You have what?
I'm getting new blooms on mine.
On your zinnias?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mine are still just like popping out new
it's important
flowers.
for people to remember that just because things perhaps looks a little sad right now doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. We're at the very end of summer. Actually, I guess we have already rolled over into the.
I think today is the first day of fall.
today
Right?
It
is
Yeah.
is.
So
Happy
since
autumn.
we now are in fall, that's the reason why it's fall.
It's fall, man.
The days are getting
Noticeably
2 minutes
shorter.
and 16 seconds shorter every day. So, that's what happens.
Oh gosh,
They're
we're moving
act-
towards darkness.
We are.
Okay, but let's just bring it back around. We were talking about these peonies looking sad right now. A lot of people I know want to cut these down when your daffodils are all bloomed out in the spring. You want to go ahead and remove those leaves. But in order for that plant to be super happy and healthy and get bigger year after year, you're going to want to leave all of those up. So planting for seasonal changes and just month by month is always something to think about when you are starting your new beds. So speaking of planting seasonally, we've got some pansy questions today.
All right.
Will pansies do well in pots? Yes.
Yes.
Looks like we're all on the same page with that. Yeah?
Yep.
Now, the only time that they won't do well in pots is when you get into the kind of the
-5.
Well, actually, they'll look bad well before that
Yeah.
temperature, but it won't. It likely won't kill them. They're very cold, resilient,
Solid.
but it can burn the foliage back. So,
Yeah.
if you have them in containers and you're trying to keep them blooming nice all winter, you could just move them in or cover them during cold spells. But if it's below about 20 degrees, that soil temperature is going to shut those things down. But the other side of it is, as soon as it warms back up,
They pop.
they immediately start setting bud and blooming again. So,
Oh, yeah, they flush right back out. Although I did lose mine with the December freeze.
So
But,
did I.
what didn't we lose in
That's
that
true.
December freeze, y'all?
Yes.
My
true.
pansies in ground did fine through it. They came back and they looked amazing. And I was actually really sad to have to pull them up. But we are full up on pansies right now. When you walk back into that annual greenhouse, it is like a pansy bonanza.
Jane has got it going on.
Jane has
back
got
there.
it going on. Shout out to Jane. She is doing great with all those annuals. And she knows where everything is. It's insane. You can call back there and Jane's like, I know exactly how many we have and where those are without looking.
That's amazing. When you have, folks, you have to see this greenhouse to appreciate what Caroline is saying. about Jane.
Come get you some Talavera and look at those pansies. And our next question about pansies is, when is the best time to plant them? So we have them in stock right now. We're full up. The temperatures have gone down a little bit.
I
so
think
I'd say
Josh
now.
needs to answer this one.
No, you had to do it at 3:30 because the ball
Oh.
game starts at
3:30
7.
is
so.
the best
Yeah.
time, right?
But,
I mean, 2:30 is not
No.
bad, but it's and actually,
man.
the reason we say that joke 3:30 is that they're in little confined root balls in little containers, so there's no transplant shock,
No.
so it doesn't really matter what time you do it.
No.
But the time of year is right now.
Yep.
So if that's what the
Right
question
now.
is.
Speaking of time of year questions, Kay's got a question. She says she's received a box of daffodil blubs.
Blubs.
Bubs or blubs.
Bubs.
Yeah, they're LED blubs. So,
Okay.
But she wants to know she's not planted until November. Is September too early?
Yes.
Yeah, don't do it now.
Yeah. Soil temperature is still too high. I
Okay.
think you want to wait till November, close to Thanksgiving.
You don't want to waste
Tulips
all that
and-
energy, and they're probably almost more and more.
Right.
The bulbs are pre-chilled, and what that does is that buys you dormancy that you would otherwise have to wait on, and the dormancy is necessary for bulb type plants for them to flower well. And if you plant them too early, they're going to start sprouting, and you
Yeah.
don't want that because you're going to spend some of that energy, which will actually work against you. So just wait. I would wait until December. I would not. I would wait until it's really cool, consistent.
Well, she
weather.
doesn't usually until November, but wait until Thanksgiving for
Yeah,
sure.
you know.
Is there a rule of average low temperatures? Like, does that
Well, again, it comes to
below 55 at night?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good range. Your soil temperature is going to likely be below 60 for sure. Would you concur with that, Adam?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And that's going to take a while for us to
Yeah,
get
that's
to
what
that
I'm
area.
saying. You got
Yeah.
to get towards Thanksgiving, and it really depends on the weather we're having. You know, if it's a cool November, maybe earlier, but
I got to jump in because Austin's not here, and I know he would be talking about layering your bulbs with your pansies on top. So that's one method that he uses. I've used it now after learning about it, and I know a lot of people like to do it. So get your bulbs.
Well-
I know he did tulip
Well,
bulbs
you're
this
already
year.
down there planting.
Right.
You just have the pansies nearby and just stick them right in
Right on
after,
top.
after you get the bulbs planted. It's all very easy.
Yep. And then, like we were talking about, when stuff starts to look sad or bloomed out, you'll have that second round of something that's just starting to grow.
And
And
if
they
that-
look
Quite
really
deep at
good.
that point too when you do them them in those layers.
Well, at least at that moment, if you're co-planting them, you know where the bulb you just planted is located, and if you go back and try to do it, you miss the mark. You may be right on top of it.
Uh-oh.
So you don't want that to happen.
No, we don't. Let's talk violas real quick.
Okay.
While we're on this pansy topic, can violas grow in shade?
Grow, yes. Flower,
Right, not as much. Yeah.
I've heard that they like shade a little bit more than pansies.
Well, they're just tougher than pansies in general. I mean, they are.
Hold on. Are we saying that small things are tougher than big things because their blooms are a little bit smaller? I am the smallest person in this room.
Well, I'm saying in this case that's true.
Okay.
Boy,
not
feeling
across
froggy
the
this
board.
morning.
Not across the board.
Okay.
All right. So they can grow in shade. They might just not bloom as much and get a little bit leggy. I know
Correct.
I've had that happen before.
We had a question earlier about putting pansies in containers. Violas are perhaps a better choice because they are a bit more adept at handling the
cold.
extremes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, those tough little things. Wow. All right. Best way to trim down African fountain grass.
Well,
Shears.
yeah.
Take a
But you
big
want-
sharp
usually-
sword and just
usually,
chop it down.
as a general rule with grasses, you want to wait until early spring, late winter before you cut them back because the stems are hollow, and if you cut them back in the fall, the water kind of works its way down in there, and you could have some rotting issues with your clump of grass there.
And
So-
plus, you're missing the most
Floofiness.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful stage
Yes.
of the grass. It's dead. No, it's in its dormant phase. Allow those seed heads to be up there and looking nice. Don't be just chopping the tops off of them, giving them a flat top.
The At Home Show is brought to you by EarthMix Garden Products, creating high-quality, sustainable soil blends and amendments in the Southeast. It's hot and your plants need some mulch. Why not use Fines by EarthMix? Their finely shredded pine bark mulch offers unmatched moisture control and fantastic texture in your garden. Not only a great mulch, but an excellent soil conditioner to assist with drainage in beds and containers. Visit earthmix.net for more information and a list of retailers near you. Remember, success begins at the ground level when you choose EarthMix Garden Products.
Nina's got a question, and she's wanting a recommendation on a small, neat, unique ornamental grass, 1 to 2 foot clump, perennial and non-invasive, and hopefully something you got in stock here at the nursery.
Where is Bridget when we need her?
I know, right? I do have a thought on that. So I have little blue stem. I planted little blue stem purple arrow, and I'd say the grass itself gets like 1 foot, maybe 1.5 foot tall, but then the flower heads go up to about 3 feet, but you can see through them. So it makes this nice little like screen that you can see through. So the grass itself doesn't get too tall. It shoots up bloom spikes, and it's super cute, and it stays pretty maintained and just clumps a little bit. Also a native, so that's a plus.
If native is not, a huge thing, you can go with Pennisetum, fountain grasses. There's lots of good dwarf ones like Little Bunny and Hamlin, and
There's
those
a bunch
are good.
of grasses.
And
back
we
there.
are
Yeah.
we are quickly approaching the season where muley grass is going to give us its splendor for what is it, a couple of weeks?
Yeah. It's been,
And if you're going to only buy one, don't waste your money.
Yeah.
no, you
buy
need to-
something
you need to
else.
buy a
Make a
clump
statement.
of them.
You need 7 or 9, or they need to be planted in proximity to each other where they
6,
really
8, or
accentuate
10.
this pink head of hair that just emerges on it. It's really spectacular. There is a planting not far from the nursery here that I'm watching.
Let's talk tree suggestions.
Okay.
Tree suggestions for middle of front yard, full sun to replace a dead dogwood.
Well, that's lots of things.
Lots of things. Now's the
I
time to
would-
get it
I
at the
would
nursery.
suggest, just me personally, I would suggest a single trunk serviceberry as a great.
You do love those.
Flowering tree for the front yard, but you could also do a red bud. You could do a crab apple. You could do, all kinds. There's some great.
You
if
could
you
do a
wanted to,
ginkgo.
Good old-fashioned
Could do a
silver
ginkgo,
maple,
yeah.
man.
I have silver maple all over my
Yeah, man.
property, Josh.
If you're trying to replicate
The 70s.
the approximate growth habit of a dogwood, I don't think that silver maple is your best choice.
They get big. I
You
have
said
them
just
lining
replace
my
it, but-
driveway, which is pretty, but the saplings that come up
Oh, yeah.
and all over my yard and all of my beds is wild. Mine are really mature. They're pretty, but
That was
they get
that was the
big.
that was the builder starter kit. 2 Nandinas
In
and
the
a silver
70s
maple.
and the
Yeah,
80s,
man.
yeah.
Are we there now,
We
Josh?
could.
No, I don't think so.
No.
No. But
Okay.
yeah, like Adam said, we have a ton of options
Yes.
here. If you want something a little bit
Yes.
smaller, we did name some.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
we did.
any of your ornamental trees are generally going to be smaller. They're going to be 20 to 30 feet tall. So
Put a ginkgo there. It would be so pretty.
Yeah.
There are some more dwarf cultivars. That
yeah,
are,
there's jade butterfly probably
Yes.
the best one.
Somebody has one of those.
I got 2.
think. You have 2 of the jade butterflies?
Yep.
Do you love them?
That's so
How big
far.
are they?
Teeny tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're going to
Cute
be
and little.
about I'd say 3.5 feet at most right now.
Well,
They're just- they're
they're
babies,
going to
man. They
be
just
they're going to be with you for the duration,
Yes.
Josh.
And when they drop their leaves, it's cool. They're
It's the
gorgeous,
coolest thing
and then
on the
they
planet.
just all at one time.
Like
there they
within
go.
about 10
Caroline?
minutes.
Hey, Tyler.
We're good to go.
All right, let's get that rose photo up, shall we? So one of our viewers is asking a question. They said, this is Eden climbing rose. It's usually prolific bloomer, but this year produced only 1 rose. A healthy but messy little thing. It did experience some freeze damage last year. I pruned the damage in late spring. It vigorously rebounded, but still no roses. I use Bayer 4-in-1 rose treatment, but maybe it needs something more this year. And then also, they said, by the way, your show anchors my Saturday mornings
Cool.
and coffee. Your
Awesome.
show and coffee, start a
Awesome.
coffee line, and you'll have the essential elements for a good Saturday. All right, so 1 rose.
The only thing I can think of is that the damage from the freeze was so severe that it is just trying to survive at this point. And it could also have come back from the rootstock too, to some degree.
I'm just trying to figure out if perhaps something changed light-wise. Maybe, sometimes highlight plants such as roses can really be reactive to just trees growing around it that have, they cross over that line where they don't quite get enough hours of sunlight. Now, certainly if you've got one right next door there
With
it
lots
would
of flowers.
it would appear that that's not the case. Roses are also heavy feeders, so if you're not fertilizing them on a monthly basis, that can also really affect.
I would say the exception of that is knockouts and drip roses.
yeah,
They-
my
they-
knockouts
you don't
wouldn't
really have to do
matter what.
anything but
No.
just trim them.
But any climbing and hybrid teas,
Yes.
you got to fertilize them.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, you do. All right, how do I bring in my plants from outdoors?
2 hands.
2 hands.
Maybe a
Pick them up,
dolly.
maybe get a friend.
hand truck, maybe a hand
Yep.
truck if it's
Yep.
big enough, maybe.
So we do have a webinar on winterizing houseplants. So if you moved a lot of your plants outside for the summer to get some sunshine and some rain, now's the time to start bringing them in. Those night temps are starting to drop, so they're going to be happy moving inside. So I suggest when you start moving them, like we said, use 2 hands. But as you pick them up, go ahead and inspect those leaves. Make sure there's not pests on them. I like to give all of my plants a good wipe down and inspection as I bring them in one at a time. So I make sure I'm not bringing anything into my home that's just going to multiply as it gets warm in my house through the winter. And it also gives you time to just clean those leaves that might have gotten some debris from outside. If you really want to be mindful of your plant, I suggest putting it next to a window that you can open so it gets a little breeze from outside, so it's not just a huge shock when you bring it inside and it's totally switching its climate. It's in something new and it's like, where am I? So
Is
it
there
gets
a
on them.
preventative drench that you can put on the soil? I know I hear people
You
talk
can use
about.
a systemic. I don't suggest doing it unless you need it.
Yeah.
I do know some other houseplant people that are friends of mine that they will regularly treat their houseplants with systemic, or if they bring a new one in, they will. I don't like adding that to my plants if I don't have to, especially when I have them inside or outside, because it's terrible for our pollinators.
Right.
So I do not suggest doing that unless you have a plant that you care a lot about that has an infestation that you are not able to treat with neem, rubbing alcohol, some of those environmentally loving treatment options. Go ahead and start moving them in. I like to take my time, move a couple in a day or so I can find a good spot. And again, like we talked about, really clean them and inspect them to make sure you're not bringing anything that's going to create an issue.
But it doesn't
in a
happen
few
every
months.
time, though, right?
What?
Doesn't happen
No,
every
it doesn't happen every time.
Sometimes.
Sometimes I'll bring in a couple. I'll be like,
Yeah.
I care the most about these. I bring them in. And then we get a freeze warning, and everyone at base is like, have you brought your houseplants in, Caroline? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to say I haven't, but I haven't. And then it turns into me running back and forth,
Just
bringing all
lie.
those plants in.
Yeah, just tell them, yeah, I did it. Got it covered.
I'm not a good liar, so
Oh, okay.
so no. Let's talk mandevilla. Someone is wondering, should I bring my mandevilla in for the winter? Yes, if you want it to live. It will not overwinter outside here in Middle Tennessee. I have not tried to overwinter one inside my home. I do know that I've read on them that people will cut them back and then let them grow inside. It doesn't seem like a plant that's going to really do well going dormant. So bring it inside if you want it to live. Give it a good haircut. Put it near a sunny window. Let it grow a little bit through the winter. I would not suggest fertilizing it over the winter, but as soon as it starts getting warm again and you can move your tropicals, your houseplants outside, then just treat it like that houseplant. You can fertilize it and it should just take off for you.
Yeah, and as difficult as it is to cut that back hard right now,
Yes.
do it now and you could leave it out for a while. You probably got a month before it becomes an issue. Cut it back now. It'll start making some breaks, and then it'll be easy to move in. Plus, by doing so, you have eliminated a substantial portion of foliage that could have some kind of pest or pathogen on it. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 with your actions there.
Tyler, you look like you have something
Yeah.
to say.
Thanks, Caroline. I give it away really easily.
Body language.
I want to show y'all something that I saw this morning actually on my gate, and this is the
What a photo. It looks like Dracula.
This is the chrysalis of a Gulf fritillary butterfly. Basically, our wild passion flower vine hosts this butterfly.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah,
Pretty.
beautiful.
So if you see these little guys flying around now on the upper side of their wings, the underside is this beautiful pattern, but on the upper side it's more of kind of like a rusty orange.
Yep.
So if you see them, and then their caterpillars are also rusty orange, and they kind of look a little devilish.
Little devils.
And they always show up around, late August, September range. And then they completely devour the plant. They just, it's almost like you don't need to do any pruning hardly, because just kind of like how the monarch caterpillar does.
Right.
Just strips it. And then they go off. They find a place, like in my case, right underneath my gate. One of them is actually literally on the hardware that's like swinging back and forth.
Watch his fingers.
Seems like an unusual
Yeah.
spot, doesn't it?
It does seem like it, but they're not there for very long, because after about 11 days, they're gone. They're butterflies and they're off. And they do migrate down to the Gulf.
Okay.
So
I was going to ask you that. That's what
why,
I figured.
That's why Gulf is in the name, but they're an incredible little butterfly and in hardy number,
Yes.
unlike the monarch.
It's really amazing the how nature has figured out how to have multi-generation butterflies that migrate, that they have never been to or from the places that they're traveling, and yet they know how to get there.
Additional support for the At Home Show is brought to you by Bates Nursery, a third-generation garden center located in Nashville, Tennessee, offering the widest selection of plants and gardening supplies, from large trees to houseplants, from seeds to soil. Their knowledgeable staff will assist you with all your gardening needs. Open year-round, minutes from the heart of Nashville and beautiful Whites Creek, Tennessee. Browse their selection online anytime at batesnursery.com. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, beautifying Nashville since 1932.
Let's clutter your ear boxes with What's in Bloom with
Austin.
everyone.
Autumn.
With everybody.
Autumn. I called you Autumn.
Autumn.
Happy first
Autumn.
day of autumn, Adam.
That's a hybrid. That's a hybrid between Austin and Adam. Is Autumn.
Autumn.
Wow. Okay, whenever
That's
they're on,
cool.
that's it.
Yep. Autumn is here.
So,
Well, Autumn's not here.
So I would imagine that it's going to be a lot of the same things
Probably.
that have been in bloom, that we've talked about already right now on this broadcast. Like rutabaga,
Rutabaga. Mine's kind of bloomed out, but
yeah,
it's still
but it's
going a
still
little
going.
bit. Ragweed going wild. We all feel
yeah.
that right now.
Crepe
Yeah.
myrtles.
Crepe
Myrtle.
myrtle.
I gotta throw it out to
Magnolias.
the noble zinnia,
Oh,
because
yeah.
Austin is not one to mention right off the rip, as he says.
He's not
Unbelievable.
here.
Does he
to
have a
say
zinnia
bad things.
bias?
He does.
He
Yes,
does.
he does.
He does. It's one of my favorite
He's
annuals.
a zinnia hater.
He really is.
Meanwhile, I'm having giant butterflies feeding on mine.
Mm.
I mean, have you ever seen the giant swallowtail butterfly?
Yes.
And the tiger one? They're huge.
Yep.
They're giant.
And they love zinnia.
Goldenrod.
Goldenrod, which is what everybody blames for their allergies, but it's the ragweed.
That is true. And I did see a funny thing yesterday we had a guest who was shopping in the perennials, and she had a goldenrod in her hand. And of course, bees doing what bees do, they're pollinators. She was horrified. She wanted the plant, but the bees were buzzing it. And I just approached her and said, no, they're not going to sting you. They're intoxicated with the pollen. I just don't like them. I go,
Okay.
You've got a flowering thing in your hand. They're going to kind of tag along. So anyway, that's kind of the deal with flowers. Bees like them.
Bees do love them, and that's why they're there. That's why things flower.
And you found out, Caroline, that yellow flower. Forgive me if we mentioned this before.
We did.
Sneezeweed.
Yeah.
Sneezeweed.
We talked about that last week, but if you missed last week's episode, Josh and I were talking about those short, little, gorgeous yellow flowers that fill up fields out in the country. I did get a picture, forgot to send it to Tyler, but that is sneezeweed. Bridget ID'd it immediately. So
They're actually getting kind of tall, too.
Yes.
They're
yeah, they start to get a little bit tall. The ones near me are probably about yay tall. About this big.
That was rather meek.
It was. My Jane Magnolia is about to bloom
Yeah.
again. She
Yeah.
is budded up, not in full bloom yet, but will be soon.
And ironweed's still blooming, too. So.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot still happening out there.
That's a great thing about this time of year is that there are a great many late season perennial type plants and that are also natives that give you a great show, great color. It will not be long before the sumacs begin to color up.
It's almost that time.
Oh, that's a great. Yeah.
That's a great show. So
Great time
let's
of year.
wrap up the morning with some hydrangea questions.
Okay.
We got quite a few.
It would not be a show without it.
Without the hydrangeas. When is the best time to prune dwarf oak leaf hydrangeas that are way overgrown?
Well, I thought they were supposed to be dwarf.
Well, I don't know what happened. I do find that dwarf stuff is kind of a lie.
It's a relative state of
They're
dwarfness, is
halflings.
it not?
Yes.
Well, in general, oak leaves are going to bloom on old wood. So you want to prune them after they're done blooming if you want to make sure you don't prune off any. So if you prune them now, you can prune them when they go dormant in the fall. You're just not going to have as many blooms next year.
You know what? I just do it. We do it at our house. We just, whenever they get too big, we just prune them.
Yeah.
And you pretty much have the knowledge that this next season, after you've done that, you're not going to get many blooms. But what you get is beautiful, thick foliage down to the ground, and then the blooms will come back. So I don't even worry about it. You're going to get a lot of blooms. If you wait until the perfect time to do it, well, you probably won't do it.
No.
Oak leaves are probably my favorite leaves as far as hydrangeas go. They have a lot of interest in their shape and just their texture. I mean, they're gorgeous.
And the fall color, too.
And the fall color.
Yes.
Yep, I love them. All right, little lime hydrangea growing out almost flat. Prune but hard back in the spring to correct it. So should they prune it in the spring to correct it?
Yes.
The flat growing.
You could even, you don't
I'm
have
not
to wait till
following
spring. You
for
could,
some
you could
reason.
prune them this winter if you want to.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
not following the flat reference there. What do we?
I'm guessing some of the
Right.
lower limbs are kind
Okay.
of growing out and close to the ground, I
Okay.
guess.
So
But-
side shear it
Okay.
if that's what you want to do in order to bring in some of those lateral growing branches. They flower on the current year wood, and that's what Adam was alluding to. Is that so? You're not going to do any damage to them by trimming them now, because the new growth that comes out and emerges in the spring is where the buds will form on those.
And our third hydrangea question of the morning. When do I cut my limelight hydrangea? It's looking sad. So mine are starting to wilt a little bit, and we talk about this all the time, but I did give one of mine a cut back, one of my panicle hydrangeas in April, and now it's full show blooming, whereas my other ones are tired. They're bloomed out. I let my bloom head stay up into the winter because I like how they look. But pruning one back in April, I did it mid-April. And I mean, it's probably at its peak right now while everything else is tired. So
That's a good idea.
Well, it was sad. It wasn't tired. I mean,
mine is tired. Mine are
You
never-
have
mine are
very
never
emotional
sad.
plants.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
I do.
They're sad. They're
It's
tired.
a yard full of emotions. But let's get back to the topic on hand, talking about cutting back limelight hydrangeas.
I think we just went over it, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would.
I mean, but what do you guys think about leaving the blooms up? So they're saying it's not looking great right now. Like we talked about with the grasses, like we've talked about with peonies. I mean, plants aren't going to look great all the time. That's Mother Nature. That's things that are
Correct.
living. They're not always going to look fantastic. I mean, I look great in the mornings, but not everybody does. So do you guys leave those spent bloom heads up on your limelight hydrangeas?
Well, I don't have limelight. I have.
Neither do I.
I have a quick fire,
I have bells.
and I do leave mine on there.
And we
never
do as
pruned it,
well.
so
Yeah.
you don't have to prune them off. I mean, they will rebloom the next
And
year.
again,
And then they blow all from the neighborhood all into your swimming
and again,
pool.
similar to some of the ornamental grasses that have hollow stems, if you have an unusually wet period, they can. I have seen them do this rot out with water standing in the stems. Now it's less likely on those than it is with ornamental grasses that have hollow stems, but
Sure.
it can happen. So again, it's the persistent dried blooms that continue on after the color has faded are really an attractive part of it. So kind of adapt your likability to things, and embrace the entire seasonality of all the different looks you get from different times of
Because
year.
during that transition from when they were actually bloomed until they start to dry out, they do get a little sad looking. So
Well,
once they dry out, they're
I
gorgeous.
would use the hand pruner approach and not the shear approach. Just cut the errant ones, the ones that
Yeah.
look bad here and there. Don't cut the whole thing. That's the way I would do it.
All right, and we did get one live question in on Instagram. We'll go ahead and
Okay.
wrap up with this one. Winter flower suggestions besides pansies. That's
Violas.
a tricky one. Those are probably the same. I think they're looking for something a little bit different. Now, as far as winter interest for me goes, it's not flowering, but I talk about heuchera all the time.
Yep.
Mine look great in the winter.
How
If
about sedges? Those
Sedges, yeah.
nice like feather falls and gold sedge. That's good.
And colorful foliage in general is really what is best accentuated by the colder weather that we know is coming along. We haven't seen it yet, but we know it's on the way.
It's coming.
I'm not ready.
So
A beautiful conifer, a chartreuse conifer, right there in that pot.
come on out and see us.
Hey, you got to come see what came in on the Isley truck. It's amazing, folks. I am not kidding you. You've got to. There's some Japanese maples on the main runway out there that are just amazing.
They really are.
They-
So come on, check them
Great
out.
Big ones, little ones, all the way around. Hey, folks, music means that this edition of the At Home Show is coming to a close. We want to thank everybody for participating. We want you to go out there, like, share, subscribe, do everything. Tell the neighbors about all the social media platforms that we're on. And we're going to be back next Saturday.
We'll be right here.
So, but for everybody here at the Green Room, see you next Saturday morning.